Good evening. My name is Vincet Kelly, and I am delighted to see you here tonight at our webinar to speak to you about emotional roller coastering. What is roller coastering? Well, we've all been to the fun fairs where we go up and down on these slidey things, but it's basically going up and down continuously in your emotions, in your life, your relationships, your job, your motivation, and so forth. So this is a subject that has played a massive part in what I have done to help people over the last 25 years. And my webinar tonight that I'm going to bring to you is based on this book here called Dianetics. And Dianetics means through the mind. And so tonight we're going to go over the two major factors that cause a person to roller coaster in life and what you can actually do about it, no matter what is the area of your life. Okay, so to start off with, I want to welcome everybody who has joined us tonight. We've got Facebook going, we've got YouTube, we've got Instagram, and right in front of me here, I've got Zoom. So I want to say hello to everybody on Zoom. Hello, Paul, Toby, Jacqueline, Daiga, Dinas, and Michaela. Hello, Michaela. Again, good to see you. Okay, everybody, so listen, you're really, really welcome to the webinar. I would love to find out where you're from, and how did you find out about the webinar? And if you've already put it down, then you can always put it down again if you've been at the previous webinars. So I'd love to find out just where are you from and how did you find out about the webinar? The reason is because often we get people from all over the place on this webinar. It's very popular. US, Europe, had some people from Africa, Pakistan even. So you can actually access this from anywhere in the world. So that's the first request of you, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram as well. Pop the comments in there, and I want to see it on the chat. It'll come through to me. Okay, so if you do that, that would be great. I'll come and check this periodically. Now, ups and downs, this roller coaster business. This seems to be a kind of a common word, and sure, we all get ups and downs in life, you know. That's life. Now, it is definitely true that life is not always smooth sailing. Where everything is going really, really well all the time, because you can run into things that you hadn't predicted and you hadn't prepared for, okay? And these can actually affect you. But even if those things happen, you should be able to get yourself going again, right? Now, what's different about this subject of personal roller coastering, and what I'm going to go over with you tonight, is that a person going up and down, even when conditions aren't necessarily changing in his or her environment. In other words, nothing's going wrong, but yet they're emotionally going up and down, and just they're just unpredictable. Now, personally, I have experienced roller coastering, and so I know what I'm talking about because it's happened to me, and I didn't like it because every time I went down, I knew in my heart, this is not me. There's something wrong here. This isn't the way it should be. Okay, so in traveling in the 90s, I went across Europe. Did a bit of backpacking, ended up in Munich in Germany, and came across this book, Dianetics, and it basically really helped me to find out exactly what was going wrong, and I learned a bit more then about this roller coaster business, and I got much better control of the situation. Okay, so for the next 60 minutes, I want to help you. This is my purpose on the webinar, is just to help you to understand some basics that cause a person to roller coaster and what you can do about it. That is my function, and I hope that at the end of this webinar, it will have helped you, okay? Now, as we're going through the webinar, I really, really would encourage you to participate as much as you can. If there's something that doesn't make sense to you, pop the question into the chat or in the comments on the other platforms, and I will see it here in front of me. If you have any comments to make, don't hesitate to pop them down. Anything that you want to say, it's completely fine. And also, I will be asking you for some examples because I want this to be a webinar, not just a lecture. And in a webinar, there's a participation element. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but and I won't force you to participate. You don't have to, but it would be great if you could just think of any examples and pop them into the chat, and it helps me to know that you understand the information as we're going through. And also another thing to add is that if you have, as we're going through this, any personal questions that you would like to discuss with one of our hosts that you don't want to kind of put into the group chat, you can send them a private message. Sylvia is there on Zoom, and you can see them all there on the other platforms as well. So you can send a personal message through the chat. And we're also going to be offering free consultations, but I will tell you more about that at the very end, so you'll have to wait. Sorry. Okay, so before I start, I just want, as I said, I want this to help you personally, and I would like to find out what you have observed in yourself or with others or in life in relation to roller coastering. Okay? So for example, and I want you to think about this. Is there somebody in your life who's been, or even yourself, that's been having mood swings all the time? Or the relationship is going up and down. You know, they're going really good, and then it's back down, it's back up, and then it's back down, it's back up and back down. Or your business. Things are going really well in your business, and then it's back down the next week. Next month it's up, next month it's down. Okay? And, or whatever it is, even in the family. Things rising and falling all the time. So I'd like you to just take a moment, if you wouldn't mind, and pop into the chat in Zoom or the other platforms any examples that you've seen in life of roller coastering, or maybe something that you would like to address. Because what I'd like to do is kind of angle the webinar a little bit more about what you want to hear, because I've got my own plan, but I want to find out what you're interested in. So just give you a moment to pop your comments into the chat. I just want to find out what you have observed in terms of roller coastering and what you would like help on dealing with. So just give you a moment to pop that in, and then we'll move on. All right. Good. So if anybody has any comments, just pop them in there and I will come back to them. Okay, so I'm going to try to help you get some basics so that from tonight you can actually do something about this roller coastering. All right? So let's get started. Okay, so the very first thing we are going to go over is this thing called suppression. Okay, I'm going to write this down. So this is the first major factor that you're going to need to know about roller coastering. Okay, now this word suppress just means to push down. Okay, push down. Yeah, for example, I'm pushing this pen down on the lid. That's suppression. It's pushing down, the act of pushing down. Now, there's a page in the book, page 29, and it shows you a little kind of a diagram about how survival gets improved as you're going through life. That's on page 29 of your Dianetics book. So if you have the book, it shows what's called a survival suppressor. Okay, so that's what we're going to go over right now. So I'm just going to draw this out for you on how this applies in life, this suppression, basically. And I'm going to show you how it relates to your roller coastering. Now, everybody, matchstick men is my speciality, but everybody is trying to survive. Okay? We're all trying to survive. We're trying to make a better life for ourselves, for our families, for our business, for our relationships. So we're trying to do better in life. And there's 4 major areas that we generally work on. The first is self. So you want to be healthy, you want to have nice possessions, you want to have nice clothes, you want to have a safe place to live. And then there's your family. It's your wife, your girlfriend, your kids, your brothers and sisters. So you want them to be doing better. Your group. You want your group to be doing better if you're part of a football club, or if you're just part of a group on Facebook or even WhatsApp. You want your group to be doing well, and you want to help the group, or your business could also be. And then the last one here is mankind. So this is basically just helping people in general. Doesn't matter what part of the world they're from. So you might not like to see people in China suffering. You might want to see them doing well. Well, you are taking actions every day to try and improve some or all of these areas. Okay? So that's the direction they're going, and that's what people want to go. But there's another direction. There's two ways that people go. If you're not surviving, because up here, remember, you've got this thing called pleasure, because when you are succeeding in your life, you're going to feel pleasure, you're going to feel happy, you're going to feel like, you know, things are going well. However, if you're going the other direction, okay, so up here we have survival and we have pleasure. I'm going to put this in red just for impact. Down here, if you're going the opposite direction, you're going down here towards non-survival. Basically what this means is failing with yourself, health-wise, for example. You're on a diet and you are just eating chocolate every day. Family, you did want to improve the family and now you're doing destructive things against your family. You're not turning up to work on time and you don't really care about mankind, or you're doing something to damage mankind. So if you're not going this way, there's a good chance you're going that way, whether you like it or not. So down at the very bottom here, you have pain. Well, let's say the ultimate trip down here is death. I'm sorry, it's a bit morbid, but anyway, death is down here. But then on your way down here, you're going to have pain. So that's how you know you're going that direction, because this thing called pain starts to kick in. And that can be physical pain, it could be emotional pain. So at the top you have survival and pleasure, and at the bottom you have pain and death. So that's that. Okay, so let me ask you this. Why is it that a person wants to go up and is going up the survival route? In other words, you want to do better in your life, you want to improve, but then all of a sudden you're plunging down here, you're going this way, and you're not even bothering to go out for that run or, you know, eat healthy or improve the relationship with your family or whatever. So let me show you what's happening here. Okay, I'm just going to shorten this diagram a little bit. What's happening here is that there's you trying to survive. Okay, you have this urge to survive, but there's an opposite thing which is pushing you back, okay? And that opposite thing is trying to suppress you, it is suppressing you or pushing you down, and that's called suppression. So why is it that a person wants to go that way but is now going this way? It's because they're not overcoming the suppression in life. So they sink down, they start to think like this way and they start to act this way as well, okay? So there you go. So they're basically effectively going down this direction whether they like it or not. And this is where the roller coastering starts to kick in. They were doing really well and now they're going this way. And then they're doing really well and now they're going this way. So essentially they feel overwhelmed. They get the idea that, you know what, I can't overcome this problem. So get this idea, let's pick another color. They get this idea, I can't do it. And as soon as they start thinking I can't do it, what they're saying is, I can't survive, so there's only one other direction to go, and that's this direction, okay? But essentially they're saying they can't overcome this problem that they're facing in life. Now, obviously, different people are at different persistencies, they're at different energy levels, they're at different strengths and so forth. So different people have different abilities to handle suppression. So it affects different people in different ways. It's a bit like, you know, if you're rowing up a river and against the current, if the current is too strong, you'll be pushed backwards towards the lower part of the river and you'll find yourself down at the bottom, even if you don't really want to be there. But it also depends on the strength of the person rowing the boat. Now, we're all familiar with external suppression. Now, this is things that come from the outside that can push you down, all right? Things like, let's just say, for example, if there was a worldwide virus and everybody wasn't allowed to go to the shops, that could be considered suppression. Imagine that happened. Or it could be you go into your work one day and you're very happy and you're, you know, going to your 9 to 5 and your boss brings you into the back office and he tells you, listen, it's been great having you here, but unfortunately your job is finished. Or you could be affected by, I don't know, a thunderstorm or whatever, flooding, whatever. These are all suppressions, things that push you down that you kind of have to push back again. So they're all suppressions and they can make you feel like you can't do anything effective. So once there's this big push coming against you, you get this idea, you know what, I can't do anything, all right? So so we've had a look at the external stuff. Now I want to show you a little bit about how suppression can come from another person. Okay? So, yes, you can have external factors. You don't have enough money. It's snowing outside, so you can't get to the shops. The coronavirus is here, so you can't get anywhere. You can't do what you want to do. That's a major factor. But another major factor is this, and this also is majorly responsible for the roller coastering, is when you're trying to survive, but there's somebody in your environment basically pushing against you. Okay? And this person, maybe they're critical of you, maybe they're talking about you behind your back, maybe they're discouraging you all the time, maybe they're encouraging you to do things that are destructive for you. So I want to actually read out to you a definition for suppression in relation to this type of situation. So basically, I'm going to write this in. Suppression is basically a harmful intention, okay? A harmful intention or action against which one cannot fight back. So this person has the idea, I can't fight back. In other words, I can't do anything about this. I just have to live with it. I just have to stick with it. I just have to tolerate it. So it's a harmful intention or action against which one cannot fight back. Now here's the key thing. Thus, or therefore, when one can do anything about it, it is less suppressive. So as soon as the person here, okay, as soon as the person here starts taking actions and changes this idea from I can't to I can fight back, and they start doing something about it. Okay, maybe it doesn't resolve the whole situation, but the person becomes less affected by it as soon as he gets the idea, you know what, I can do something about this. I can do something. So now, there's two types of this suppression that can come from an individual. Okay, and by the way, if anybody's any questions on that, let me know. And you can pop it into the chat on Zoom, or you can pop your comments into Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. Now, so let's have a look at these harmful intentions or actions against which you can't fight back. Well, it is possible to fight back against it once you change your mind on it. Okay, so we have direct suppression. And suppression basically means somebody putting you down. So we can have direct, or you can have indirect. Okay, and that's going to come down on top of you, and the result is going to be this roller coaster business. So let's take a couple of examples of direct. So direct suppression could be somebody telling you directly, look, you're no good, and tells you this pretty much every day. You're no good, you're going to fail in life, I absolutely hate you. And they, draw graffiti on your house every day, or they, play loud music in the next door neighbor's house deliberately just to drive you nuts, okay? So this is kind of direct suppression. And it can make a person roller coaster because it can make them feel bad, but can also be indirect. It could be, let's say, somebody telling you that, you know what, you got a great haircut there, I think they could have cut more off it. It's just some subtle, slight little things to just get in there and jab, just little jabs to get in there underneath the skin, and you don't even see it. Sometimes you don't even realize that it's happening, but this person is kind of just getting in these little comments, and for some reason you feel bad afterwards, but you can't really recall where exactly it came from, because apparently the person is very friendly, but yet at the same time, they're kind of saying things to make you feel bad. It could even be somebody borrowing your stuff without your consent, a friend borrowing your stuff, or eating your food if you live with people in an apartment. As I used to live in an apartment with other guys in college, and you come down some days and your cornflakes are gone, somebody's taken them, and you say, look, you leave a note on them, and the next day they're still gone. So it's like indirect suppression. Okay, so maybe cornflakes is not a great example, but the fact is that when you're subjected to this, especially when you can't spot it, it can really affect you going up and down in life. Now, how do you decide if a person is a person who engages in this type of stuff? Well, there's 12 characteristics, there's 12 traits which can help identify the difference between somebody who is just temporarily or momentarily suppressive, like, or upset with you, okay? So this wouldn't be a bad person. It would be just somebody who's like annoyed and then just says you're terrible, but it's just, you know, because they didn't get enough sleep last night or something. So we're not talking about somebody like that, even though that could have an effect on you. We're talking about somebody also who does it on more of a regular basis. So there's 12 characteristics that will be able to help you to identify whether somebody is trouble to be around or not such trouble to be around. And that information, you can contact one of our consultants there through the chat. Sylvia is on the Zoom there, or you can also contact through YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram if you want to get more information about that, okay? So that will give you more information about the direct and indirect suppression. Okay, so let's move on. Now, so either way, if you're experiencing suppression from any of these, direct or indirect, okay, the solution is to do something about it. Remember what I said to you, is that it doesn't have as much of an effect once you get the idea, you know what, I can do something about it, because it doesn't do you any good to just ignore it. Like, for example, if you've got, there's you again, and this person is just constantly giving you bad news. Every day you go home, they fill you with bad news about your job, about the people you're associated with. You shouldn't be reaching out to that person. You shouldn't be talking to him. You know, all sorts of things. The solution is not to just ignore it, give in to it, run away from it, you know, get violent with the person. You have to actually deal with it, and you have to deal with it effectively, and you have to deal with it properly. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is that if you've got a situation like this in your life where somebody puts you down regularly or just makes you feel bad or is directly suppressing you, you have to fully and completely handle that. Now, in the vast majority of cases, you can handle this with communication. Simple communication, even over a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Now, I'm not saying it's going to resolve on the very first conversation. So if your dad is constantly giving out to you for not doing work around the house, and it's every single day they're, you know, giving out to you, well, you could sit down and have a conversation and find out what's going on. Because if you keep up the conversation, you keep up the communication, and honestly speak to the person, because maybe you're just tired or something after your work day, but if you speak to the person, it's going to work out well. So if you have a person in your life, whether it's at work or at home, who is constantly making you feel bad, criticizing you, you can do something about it. Now, a lot of people use bad control, as I mentioned before, to try to get on top of the situation, to get violent, ignore the person, make them wrong, criticize the person back, you know, tit for tat, that kind of thing. So it's not really the best approach. The first thing is to decide, I'll handle this, just I'll handle. That's the first thing that you decide. I'm going to handle this situation. I'm going to deal with it. And the second step is communication. Okay? Now, I know I mention this quite regularly in my various webinars, but it's just so important. Communication. Communication should be open and free, and you'd be surprised what you find out. The son finds out actually that he should be doing work around the house, and then, you know, does it, and then there's no more trouble in the house. It's amazing what can work out with some good control, you know. Decide to face it and then communicate with the person. That is the best thing to do. So if you have suppression from somebody in your life, it's going to cause you to roller coaster continuously unless you do something about it. And the solution is to decide first. You have to decide that you're going to handle it and then communicate. And even though that might be a bit scary, it has to be done, unfortunately. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do, and by the way, if anybody has any questions, you can pop them into the chat. And before I do, I want to just welcome the last few people I didn't say hello to on Zoom. And I'm sure there's a few more on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Welcome Bernie, Sarmite, and Camilla. Nice to have you on the Zoom and on the webinar. So it's participation time at the webinar. And I'd love to see your comments and your examples. So here's the exercise that I have for you. This is like the test to see if you get this, to see if you understand it. Well, not really. I just want to kind of get you involved and just to see your viewpoint on this, okay? I want you to give me one example of any situation that you have seen in life where suppression exists, and I'm going to show you how it relates to what I went over. Okay? One example of an area of your life where you have seen suppression existing. In other words, is there somebody in your life that puts you down? Is there somebody in your friend's life that puts them down? Is there a group that puts somebody down? Or what is the suppression that's going on in your life right now? So pop it into the chat and I will read them out to you, and then we'll move on from that. So that's what I'd love to see, a couple of examples of suppression that you've seen in life, because I can absolutely assure you this is one of the major causes of roller coastering. Yeah, that's fine. Good. One comment coming in there from Facebook: under suppression my whole life, family. Okay, now I want to just bring up this point. You know, people say, well, it's my family that's all against me, and this and that. There's a, you know, I hear that a lot. Or it's the whole neighborhood I'm in. Or it's the company, I hate the company. Usually I hear a kind of a generality of it's a whole bunch of people. But you know, the funny thing is, it usually comes down to just one person, usually. And when you can find out who that is, you can then handle it directly, because it's usually one person that kind of filters it out to others. So let's say if you're having a problem with your whole family, if you investigate it properly, it's probably coming from just one person. And then if you apply this basic of deciding, you know what, I'm going to handle this, and then with calm communication, approach the person, sit down over a cup of tea, say, listen, can we sit down for a cup of tea or a little meal? Let's go out for a meal. I know in Ireland we have this opportunity to go for a meal, so take it. Go out for a meal and just have a chat with the person about how you feel, what's going on, and how you'd like to address it going forward. Okay? Because it is important to have a good relationship with your family. You know, it's not nice when there's a lot of arguments and argy-bargy between the family members, you know. Okay, next one, in school. Okay, now, could you, whoever put that in, I can see your name, I still want to read it out on Zoom, but can you just put down what exactly happened in school that was the suppression? Was it like bullying or criticism from a teacher, or was it, you know, what was it? What was the suppression in school? Can you pop that in? Because I'm going to mention something about this as well. Again, school is kind of like a generality. Yeah, bullying. Now, this is a really good example, and with this kind of situation, it's quite clear that it's direct suppression. We went over direct and indirect suppression. So when a person is being bullied, it's actually fairly much directly from a particular person. And again, this situation has to be handled. You have to decide, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to handle it, and then you communicate with the person directly. And you know what the funny thing is? The funny thing is, you say classmates, but you know what the funny thing is? It might come from 3 or 4 people, but there's usually one person in there that's generating it. And so if you confront this, you decide, you know what, I'm going to tackle this, I'm going to handle it. I'm going to take each of these persons, I'm going to find out who's saying what. You'll usually find out that it's one person that it's coming from. And then the idea is to actually deal with that. And you know what, as I mentioned, in the vast majority of these cases, it does resolve with communication. It's just sitting down going, look, I don't know why you hate me, but I'd like to know, and I'd like to address it. You know, there's that aspect of it. So there's loads of different methods you can use to actually handle it, but the basis of it is communication. So I hope that helps. Good. Okay. So again, person mentioned a specific family member that kind of was the aspect of the family that was a suppression. Now, the suppression can come from one person of the family. So this aspect of communication has to be put in. Calm communication. It's often very, very difficult to communicate calmly with a family member because you've got so much in common, you've got so much history together that person presses your buttons, you press their buttons, and before you know it, you can't get anything resolved. So if, let's say, you go to your mother and you want to try and sit down with her and go, Mom, listen, I want to talk to you about how you've been criticizing me every day of my life, and I'd like to address that. Well, it might not be a very easy conversation, but the best advice I can give you is to be as calm as you possibly can and let the person speak and acknowledge what they say. Don't make them wrong for it. Just say, okay, I understand. Thank you. Now, let me just tell you how I feel about it, and let them listen to it and make sure they understand it. And then listen to what they say, acknowledge, communicate back, wait for the acknowledgement, and so forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, in the second part of the webinar, I'm going to show you about a thing that kind of causes massive trouble, especially with this family area, and causes you to have problems dealing with this suppression or even facing it. And I'm going to go over this with you in a minute. So I hope that helps. Again, the calm communication. I know there may have been history with a parent or a family member. You know, sometimes a person could do that, maybe intentionally, but I would say in the vast majority of cases, as I'll go over in part 2, it wasn't necessarily intentional. It doesn't make it right, but there's a factor that is a kind of a hidden factor here that I'm going to go over with you now in a moment. So I hope this will help you as well. Okay. Another comment in here, parents criticize a 5-year-old child for his every effort to participate in homework to don't hurt himself. Yeah, you know what? The best solution with kids is to let them grow. Okay, you know what? You have to try and provide a safe environment for kids so that they don't hurt themselves. But, you know, encouragement is always the best. Like if a kid is not doing well on his homework, for example, and the parent comes and criticizes them for it and says they're bad or they're no good for not getting an A, it can have a big effect and it can cause the child to roller coaster. The best solution is to find out from the child what's going on, what's the area that you're having difficulty with. Let's see if I can get you some help with that, you know, is a bit more of encouragement, because especially with younger kids, they're just trying to find their feet, you know, they have difficulty communicating the way they feel sometimes. They can get into tantrums and this kind of stuff, and it can be difficult. Okay, so thank you for those examples. Okay, everybody, brilliant, brilliant examples, and I really appreciate the participation. It's great for me to see that you're understanding this. Okay, so now let's go over the next major part of the problem, and this is going to explain to you why you have a problem handling a family member, handling somebody who is suppressive to you, handling somebody who makes you feel bad all the time. Okay, now, for anybody who has this book, right? This, what I'm going to read out to you is on page 50. If you don't have the book, I'd recommend getting it, and there'll be a link at the end to show you how you can get it, because it will explain to you all of what I'm going to go over here now. Now, so, believe it or not, there is something, I'm going to talk about you for a second, and then when we talk about you, we can relate this then, blend it over to the person that's suppressing you, because they've also got this thing. Now, the section in the book here is called the reactive mind. This is the problem. Now, I know you probably didn't want to come on and just kind of hear about the mind and all this kind of stuff and deep. I'm not going to make it deep. I'm going to keep it very simple, very basic, but you really need to know what I'm going to say right now. We need to know this because you've got one of these. You may not be aware of it, but you've got one. And that person in your family or that person who's putting you down all the time, they've also got one. A reactive mind. Now, let me explain to you what this is. And again, if you have the book, page 50, you can read along with the definition. So, every person, every day of their lives is trying to survive. We're all trying to survive in life. We're trying to do good for our families, for ourselves, for our group, for mankind. And every day you're taking in information, and your mind is like your own personal computer that you store tons of information in every single day. Okay? So for example, I'd like you to think about your breakfast. What did you have for breakfast this morning? I bet you can remember it. You have a memory of that, and if you closed your eyes, you'd probably be able to smell the toast again and taste the porridge that you ate or whatever it was. And you've got memories of like practically everything that you've experienced. And you use this information to help you to survive even better. So if you learn how to bake a cake, okay, you've learned, you've got the experience, and now you can bake cakes going forward. You learned how to ride a bike, and now you can ride a bike, and you can teach other people how to ride bikes. So we call this kind of the aware part of the mind. The problem is, if you have a very bad experience, like if you experience a lot of pain, so let's say you fall out of a tree and you break your arm, okay? This pain is going to come in and it's very heavy. or if you're in a car crash, or if you even cut your hand while you're preparing food for the dinner, all right? This pain comes in. Now, just like the fuse box in a house, to protect the things in the house from getting overloaded, there's a mechanism in your mind where this thing gets switched off to protect it. In other words, your mind gets protected when there's too much pain coming in. But what happens in this situation is there's a separate part of the mind, guess what it's called, which stores these moments of physical pain. So even though you might have been completely unconscious, this reactive mind is storing two things. Number one, moments of physical pain. We'll just put it pain and unconsciousness. Now that could be full unconscious, or it could be partially unconscious. So if you fell down the stairs and you were just dazed, well, that's partial unconscious, and it will be stored in this separate compartment called the reactive mind. And the second thing that's stored in here is basically emotional pain, because that can have just as much impact as the physical pain. Now, when I'm referring to emotional pain, I'm specifically referring to loss, okay? Because this can have a traumatic effect on somebody. If you lose a parent or a child or a friend or a family member or an important exam, or your car gets stolen, or your house gets taken away from you, or you lose your job, this can be severe emotional pain. The normal part of your mind kind of switches off, and this part of your mind stores these two types of incidents and keeps it nice and buried. Why does it keep it nice and buried? It keeps it under the surface because it's set up then to react automatically when something similar happens again. And this is why it's called the reactive mind. So here's a few examples of this. Let's move on to some examples. So let's say emotional pain. Your parents got divorced when you were, 10 years of age. And you really wanted to keep them together. You loved them dearly, and they split up. Well, this can be a major, major loss for somebody, okay? So if this wasn't handled, let's say you were sitting around with this loss for years and years and years, and you've totally forgotten about it, the reactive mind hasn't forgotten. It's kept it there to kind of protect you from the same situation happening again. It's like an animal part of the mind that just reacts without your consent. So, if let's say in your current relationship, you're having an argument or whatever it is, this current relationship could potentially trigger off this past incident, and without you even realizing it, this thing becomes alive and starts affecting the way you think, the way you act, and the way you feel. So in other words, you were feeling great, and then all you had is an argument with your partner, and now all of a sudden you feel upset, you're nervous, you're unhappy, and you don't know why. And your partner is going, "What's wrong with you? I don't know why you're so upset." Well, the reason you're so upset is because it's not just the present argument, it's also this past stuff that's getting churned up without your permission. So let's go on to the next example. Let's say if you, as a teenager, you were at a party, and you were coming home, and on your way home, you got mugged by a group of young fellas, and they beat you pretty bad, okay? So that would be a physically painful incident stored in your reactive mind, because during moments of pain, remember, this part of the mind switches off and this part of the mind starts recording. So in the future, all it would take is a similar situation again. It doesn't have to be the same thing. Anything could crop up. It could be a similar person. It looks like one of the guys that beat you up. It could be a tone of voice, a specific word that they said. It could even be something on the television. But what happens is it causes this thing to reactivate. You get stressed out, and all of a sudden, you were going in this direction of survival, and instead of that now, you're going backwards. You're retreating. You're saying, you know what, I have to stay away from here. I want to leave my partner. I'm never going to walk down that road again. Okay? So the summary is, the reactive mind is a part of the mind that you're not in control of. It contains the painful experiences from your past, and it's a part of your mind that causes you to retreat from your goals. And as soon as you start retreating from your goals, you're going to experience this ups and downs. You know, you were sure you were going to get it, and now you're thinking, oh God, maybe I can't, right? And that applies to all the different areas of your life, whether it's your health, your family, your relationships. In other words, it's the part of your mind which causes you to get stressed out automatically, and then causes you to go back and causes you to react and say and do things that really aren't nice. Now, this doesn't just apply to yourself. This also applies to those family members or those people in your life that are putting you down, because they can react to you because they also have a reactive mind. I'm not saying what they're saying or doing is correct. I'm just letting you know they also have a reactive mind, and it's best if you don't press their buttons because you just make them more and more reactive, you see. So that, just to give you this one more time. The reactive mind is a part of your mind that stores the pain from your past. It's the reason why you lose control and you get stressed out, you lose your temper, you get sad, you go up and down in emotions, and it's why you treat people in a negative way sometimes, okay? And I'm sorry to say that everybody has one, and it has to be cleared up. Okay, so I hope that has been clear enough. Okay, so here we go. It's participation time in the webinar. Your turn. I get a break now. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, first of all, if you have any questions on this, because it's a quite in-depth diagram, if you have any questions on it, do not hesitate to pop it into the chat here, and I will do my best to answer it for you immediately. Okay, so if you are tracking with this, what I would like you to do now is like you to think of an example. This is your opportunity to participate. I'd like you to think of an example of time when you were being suppressed by somebody or something else, and you reacted and you did something that you regretted later, like leaving your job, leaving your partner, you know, screaming at the kids, you know, hitting the kids, whatever it is. So just think of an example of a time. So I'll give you this again. I want you to think of an example of a time when you were being suppressed by somebody else, but instead of handling it, you reacted. You got stressed out and you did something that was a little bit not really correct. So what I'd like you to do is pop that into the chat. If you don't want to bring up one of your own personal experiences, you can put it down on something that you've seen in somebody else. Okay? And for anybody on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, what I'd like you to do is pop your examples into the comments, and they're going to come in through Zoom to me directly. All these privileged people have me here directly on Zoom, and so any of your comments will come in to me. So I want to give you that moment to think of an example of a time when you were suppressed and you reacted and you did something you shouldn't have done. So pop those into the chat there when you have them. So I'll just give you that again. An example of a time when you were being suppressed and you reacted and you lost it and you did something that you shouldn't really have done. That is the reactive mind. Okay, so if anybody has, what do we have here? We have one from Facebook. Oh, this is a great one. I love this example. I mean, it's a terrible example in life, but it's a good example for the purpose of the webinar. Kicked my dog after my mum screamed at me. Felt terrible. That is a great example. Like, the dog wasn't doing anything wrong. He's just sitting there waiting to be brought for a walk. And unfortunately, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The mother said something, a reaction come in, and the foot went out, and the dog went flying. This is the reactive mind in operation. Brilliant example, whoever you are on Facebook. Thank you very much. Anybody else want to pop in an example before we move on? And even if I do move on, I'll come back to it, and I will check them out. Okay. Another one. Friends being mean to me, so I got mad and hit the wall. Okay, great example. Whoever you're on Facebook, brilliant example. Yeah, you know what? It is so much an important thing to be able to resolve things with communication. It doesn't matter what somebody is coming at you with. It's just be relaxed, chilled out, and try to communicate. And if you're feeling stressed out, or if you want to react, or you're getting like you're going to lose your temper with the person, or you're getting really, really angry, understand this. That's your reactive mind. Understand that that has to be handled and that has to be cleared up. So, good example, thank you so much. And then you hit the wall then and you feel like sore after it. So, good example. Oh, there's another good example. Didn't ask for a better salary at work because he thought he wasn't worth it. Okay, so again, that is a reactive mind, you know. It's like the person feels, you know what, I'm under suppression here because I don't have enough money to survive properly. I need a better job, I need more money, but can't confront it because they've got these worries and fears in the background, and these worries and fears are coming from the accumulated baggage in the reactive mind, okay? And there's a chapter in this book, it's, let me take a sneak peek. I think it's book 2. Book 2, chapter 1, it's called The Reactive Mind in the book. It explains to you all about how it can affect you. Okay, so everybody, they're brilliant examples, and if anybody else wants to pop in an example on any of the platforms, do not hesitate to pop it in. Okay, so I just wanted to get you to see how this reaction from your reactive mind could cause you to react in such a way that would really affect you, that would really make you more nervous and stressed, and which would basically make it difficult for you to handle the suppression. That's the reactive mind. That's the reason why you've got such trouble handling suppression. Now, here's the basics. Let's go over this again. Number 1, if you're being suppressed in life by somebody directly or indirectly, that's going to cause you to go up and down. You need to do something about that suppressive person or factor in your life. And the most successful tool here is calm communication. And tea is a great little medium. Number 2 is you have to clear up this reactive mind. Now this one here, the reactive mind, is the main thing which can affect you emotionally without your consent. And it's the thing that causes you to lose control of your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions when you are being suppressed by a person or a factor in your life. And they might not even be doing it intentionally. It could be unintentional, but still it affects you. And so in relation to this, there's a whole body of knowledge that gives you practical steps that you can take to improve your stability. And one of our trained consultants can go over that with you if you want to contact them. Sylvia is on our Zoom, and you can also contact them through the other platforms. All right, so let's move on. We've gone over the 2 key basics that causes ups and downs, right? You can definitely do things to try and temporarily handle this. So let's say if you're being suppressed by a person, okay? Somebody is criticizing you every day. Well, you can try to ignore the person, okay? Or you can blank them out of your Facebook. Or you can not respond to their calls. Or you can just only focus on your phone. Or you can just become smaller in life and withdraw and go out and kind of dance in the meadow. These are all fine, but they're temporary fixes that make you feel happy for a short period of time. So if you have these things like issues with stress and reacting and so forth and losing your temper, you're going to have this again and again when situations like this crop up in the future, because essentially you're living life, you're going to run into opposition, so forth. Now, if anybody has or wants to make a comment about how long you have been suppressed for, I would love to know. Has it been a week, 2 weeks, 10 weeks, a year? How long have you been suppressed? Give me a figure, pop it into the chat. That would be wonderful, because I can absolutely assure you in most cases it didn't just happen yesterday. It's been going on for a long time, and often people even they think roller coastering is part of my life now. Everybody goes up and down. No. It's something that you can actually get in control of. Okay. All right, and we just give one more example there from Paul. Thank you, Paul. He's my young child escaped from the garden and rode his bicycle towards a busy road, panicked and smacked him. Okay, great. Okay, it's a good example, right? So you might have, it was a good thing to grab. Exactly, but sometimes when people get overly nervous about their children, they can become very, very reactive. And often the reason for that is because they have their own baggage in their own past where the same thing kind of happened to them. That's often what happens. So now we're going to go over why it is that with time these situations get worse, not better. I'm I'm going to end this on a positive, don't worry. Okay? So, as I went over, you're carrying around this baggage, okay? And you might think, you know what? I'll just only speak to nice people. If I don't associate with certain groups of people, I'll be fine. I'll just stay away from. I won't go to Ireland because every time I go to Ireland, somebody gives out to me, or whatever it is. Okay, so there's you, and there's your mind. And as I mentioned, you're carrying around this baggage from your past. What happens is, every single time you get reminded of this past baggage, something new gets added. So for example, if you lost your parents when you were a child, and your current arguments with your wife trigger that off and affect you, then that new incident is going to be added here. Now, if that happens every single day of your life, where you go home, you have an argument with your wife about something, those incidents are just going to pile up and pile up and pile up and pile up and pile up, and before you know it, you're not the same person you used to be. But I can assure you, if this internal stuff wasn't here, you would be able to be in control of your life. You'd be able to handle the suppression that you're facing without all this excess reaction, okay? So that's why people say to me, well, look, time will heal it. It'll be fine. It'll work itself out. It doesn't, not in my experience. I haven't seen that happening. Yes, temporarily it's fine, but if you don't really get to the root of the problem, you're going to have to go and live in the west of Ireland or something and buy a boat and just fish or something. Okay, so you got this baggage. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger every time this stuff gets reactivated. So how do you solve this? So I've given you the first tip on calm communication. That's how to handle the external aspect of it. But how do you handle this internal aspect? The internal thing that's causing you to have a problem dealing with the suppression in the first place. Okay, so now, I get really excited about this actually because when I came across this first, I thought this is an interesting theory. Let's see, does it work? And you know what? It works. I use this to help other people, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This really, really helps people stably, permanently. And so I had some myself, and I went, my God, this works. And I've been promoting this for over 25 years. And for anybody who's been to my webinars before, they'll see that this is the point I push because this is what works. Now, this is the word here. It's called auditing. And for any of you who haven't been at my webinars, I used to go to Latin classes, so I love the old derivations of words. Auditing comes from audire, which means to listen. Okay, it's an old Latin word. There you go. There's some information for you. Basically means to listen. This is the procedure of Dianetics. It's called auditing. Now, Dianetics is done with two people. You need two people to clear the baggage. I'm sorry to tell you that. You're not going to be able to clear it on your own. Yes, there are things that can help you to feel better, but in order to clear up the baggage, it's done with two people. So you've got a person called an auditor. An auditor is a person who listens and guides. He is not a person who gives you life advice, tells you what to do. Oh, you should do this, you should do that. Don't hang out with that person, don't hang out with this person, etc., etc. The auditor is there to listen and to guide. Now, the person who's receiving help, we have a little word for it. It's called pre, means before, and clear, pre-clear. Now, pre-clear basically means before clear. Why? Because there's an end result of Dianetics, and the end result is the state called clear. Okay? And clear is a situation where, oh God, that's a terrible picture of a clear person. Hang on. Got to make a better smile than that. Okay, it's basically a situation where a person is back to themselves again. In other words, what they're trying to do in Dianetics, what we're trying to do here is help a person to clear up these painful incidents from the past. And you know what? You don't have to handle every single thing because they're often connected by chains and you have to get to the basic. But you handle each incident using the exact step-by-step procedure of Dianetics until the pain is gone from the incident. When I say gone, I mean gone. And if it's not gone, it means that there's an earlier one connected to it and you need to find that one. So this is what you do. It's not just idle chatter about life. Let's sit down and talk about nothing for 20 minutes or a half an hour or 2 hours. It's a very exact procedure. The person's wide awake. He's returning to things that have happened to him in the past or her and clearing them up with the auditor through communication. And believe it or not, it works. And it works every time. And the end result here is Dianetics, is the clear. Sorry, I didn't write that in. End result is called clear. You're not looking to do Dianetics forever. It's not a way of life. It's something that you do until you reach clear. Now, after clear, yes, you're going to run into suppression. Yes, you might have some painful experiences happen to you, but you're much better equipped to handle it, and your energy level will be back so that you can actually tackle bigger problems. So that's what you need to aim for, is this thing called clear. Because when you do, you're going to be able to handle a lot more criticism from other people. You're going to be able to handle a lot more things coming in your way. So that's what auditing is. This is the procedure of Dianetics. This is how you clear up your reactions to things which make you go up and down, roller coaster. This is the main reason why you roller coaster. It's your reactive mind, and you have to tackle it because it just doesn't go away by itself. Time does not heal it. It has to be actually tackled, and it's tackled with two people. So I hope that gives a clear picture of what auditing is. All right, so first of all, before I move on to this, the next bit, does anybody have any questions at all on what I went over here or the procedure of it? So if you do, please pop them into chat. Don't be shy. If there's something you don't understand, pop into the chat there. If you have something that you'd like me to clarify, pop your comments into YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, or into Zoom, and I will be very happy to answer the questions. Okay, so what do you do now? What do you do next? So personally, what I recommend to you and what I recommend to everybody before doing anything else is to get an understanding of how this reactive mind works for yourself, not just take my word for it, okay? So what I gave you tonight, this little section of the reactive mind, is just a small little piece from this subject called Dianetics. Now this Dianetics basically means through the mind, and it contains all the answers that you're going to need to know about how your mind works the way it works, why it works the way it works, why you pass on your stresses to your kids and they turn into their mum or their dad, why it is that your mind can affect your body, and how to prevent this type of situation from happening going forward, especially with kids, Now, I've personally seen a lot of people dealing with this roller coaster situation from just a short time using Dianetics, and I'm sure you've guessed, but it's not a quick fix. In other words, we're not aiming for just feeling great one day and then you're back to feeling bad the next day, which is just the same old roller coaster. We're looking for stable improvement. We're looking for permanent, stable improvement and get you back up to the point where you are able to overcome these negative factors in your life, build you back up. You used to be really, really strong, really tough, and all these things, these anxieties, these reactions that you have, these stresses, all these things have a source, and you can definitely handle them once you get to the root of it, That's you have to get to the bottom of it, okay? So that's basically that. Okay, so any questions on that? If you do, pop them into the chat. And so what I went over tonight, I covered the basics of what causes the problem, the suppression, and then the internal stuff. And I went over the two basics of how to handle it, calm communication and clear the reactive mind. But I have to tell you that I'm talking to a broad group here, but everybody's situation is individual, it's unique, it's personal to you, you have your own situation, and so forth. So as I mentioned to you at the very beginning of the webinar, you can book a free consultation, a Dianetics consultation with us tonight, and it consists of a personalized interview over the phone, and you basically pick the time, because we're available a lot for these particular consultations. And on the consultation, we'll be able to give you the best directions to progress with the next step for you personally. And it's done with one of our trained consultants, and I would really recommend this to any one of you so that you can really ask, more personal questions and talk about your personal situation that you would like to address. So if you haven't contacted Sylvia or anybody through the chats or on the messaging system, you can book a provisional appointment online right now, and that link is up there right now on the chat. So I'm going to give you a minute or two just to check that out, and then we will wrap up. So have a look at that link there for a moment. Okay, folks. So there you go. I hope you can avail of that. It's really, really beneficial, you know. So finally, I hope this has been of benefit to you tonight. I hope you got something out of it. And I would really like you to start applying this in your life and get started in Dianetics like straight away. And I would also like to thank you all very much for coming tonight. Everybody on Zoom, Toby, Jacqueline, Daiga, Dennis, Bernie, Sarmita, Camilla, thank you so much for your attention and your time tonight. Thank you to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram who's been joining in, and for your comments as well. Really appreciate it. And I hope to see you again at a future webinar. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a beautiful evening.